everybody and welcome to the playthrough for Pro and Expert Division in the Great Outdoors Tournament. The video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, so let's go. 20% extra, it's a must for the drive. And when we do have headwind, we're going to play with the ball to the left there with the gap in between the trees. So use as much topspin that you possibly can, with as much side spin to the left possible. And the plan is to have the first bounce on the fairway, the second bounce in the rough in between the trees, to then roll out to the fairway on the other side to give ourselves a long iron shot towards the pin. Now I do hit great to the right, which is going to make myself go more to the right obviously. And that is going to be something that we don't want, because now we're going to have the tree in our face. In the end here, I would say that this drive is for headwind. If we do have a crosswind or a tailwind, we're going to try to go full blast down the middle, not down the middle, but on the right side, try to gain as much distance possible to then have an open shot towards the pin. In this playthrough, you're going to see both me and my opponents, and due to me having to use all the recording for some of the holes, make it impossible to just cut it out to use just my shots. So have that in mind. Of course, they're going to be shorter and sweeter once we do get to the tournament. And also, this playthrough is going to have a mixed wind, because it's tour play games. In tournament, we do have the same wind for every shot, just with some slight angle changes, depending on course, obviously. So, second shot, we're going to have to over adjust 10%. And now you can see we are having the trees in our face. So, in this case, the shot doesn't really mean that much to us, because we're going to just get the ball to the green. So, max side spin to the right and 1 bar of backspin, or a half a bar of backspin would be what I would be going for. But I'm using 1 bar topspin, which will make me come in hot. If I would be having an open line towards the pin, then I would be not using any side spin to the right, just using half a bar of backspin and aiming towards the pin. And once again, do not forget about the 10% extra. When we come to hole number 2, there is 2 ways of playing hole number 2. One, that is to use the fairway, bounce ourselves towards the pin. Easy birdie with a little chance of an hole-in-one. If we do want to go for the hole-in-one, then we're gonna use the rough bump on the top left. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna show that in this playthrough, because the rough bump for me is depending on what type of wind that we're gonna have in the tournament. So I'm going to update in the playthrough that comes, if so, for this rough bump. It is the rough bump is way better chance for an hole-in-one in my opinion, but with a very tricky wind, it might be better to consider going with a regular approach. 30% extra, 3-0, very important. Hole number 3, par 5, we're going to start with the drive, 20% extra, so 2-0. And we're going to use 6 bars top spin, and we're going to use 4.5 bars side spin to the right. I would say when you do have even if it's just a tiny headwind now, but when you do have a headwind, you should use 6 bar topspin plus, depending on obviously what type of club you're having. If you're having an XMI 7 and below, then you're going to have 4.5 bar topspin instead, and then you will have to use the maximum there obviously. As I said, max side spin to the right, and then we're going to use some curl to the right, not much, just a little bit, to make sure that we are going to keep ourselves there in the center. When we're getting the ball up here, it's a perfect spot for us to reach the green in 2. The power 3 ball is not necessary for the drive, but for the second shot, and we need to think 1 step ahead, and therefore we choose the power 3 ball to make sure that we're giving ourselves the distance for the second shot. When we're getting in between the rough and the sand there in the center, we do need to think about one thing as well, is that we're not getting too far. If we roll too far on the fairway and trying to push it too hard, because there is a ton of players that is going to try to push it too far, because they feel that getting more distance is going to be better for them. But on this hole, it's wrong. You need to think about where the ball is going to end up to be able to not have the the trees in your face. So, second shot here, we're not going to over or under adjust anything. And here I do have the sniper. So, and with a straight headwind, the sniper would be the absolute best club with a crosswind or with a tailwind. But once we do have a headwind, then we would obviously want to play with a club that gives us a little bit more distance. But also with a headwind, it's very easy here to miscalculate the compressed ball guideline and have the ball bounce on the fairway, then in the rough. So I'm using 2 bars topspin to make sure that I'm getting over the rough. I'm just gonna leave myself up with a very safe putt for an eagle. With a crosswind or a tailwind, we have a shot for the albatross, but with a headwind, I would say that the albatross is almost dead. Hole number 4, we go for the rough bump. Katana would be the best ball here due to its side spin. We're going to have to over adjust 10% for this tee shot, very important. 2.5 bar backspin, gonna be changed to 2 bars as we do have a headwind. If we do have a crosswind, 2.5 bar would be perfect. If we do have a tailwind, 3 bars would be perfect. Max side spin to the left, and then we're going to take a look at the ball guideline. So even though you have a club that doesn't have a good ball guideline like the extra mile, you will still be able to see the ball guideline, which will make it valuable. In the tournament, use the quarterback or the rock for a better accuracy, for a better ball guideline. And the rough bump is for sure going to be the best chance for us to make in a hole-in-one on the tough hole 4. So here we do have hole number 5, a par 4 of the Greenoch point. And as we do have headwind, we're going to play up to the right. We're going to play with a power 3 ball as we do not want to overpower our drive if it's not absolutely necessary. And we're going to have to over adjust our drive 10%. Very, very important, as we're otherwise going to have a problem. If the wind would be a tailwind instead, then we would be going full blast at the same side as we're going now. But with the major difference of that we want to use as much topspin possible and bounce over the rough and the bushes to gain as much distance possible. The difference that makes for you there with those 2 shots is that when you have a headwind and need to lay up, is that you will not be able to go for the pin because it's going to be too risky. And even though you're gonna be able to go for the pin, there is no way to really find that as rewarding as we want it to be. But if we do have then the tailwind and we get up very close to the rough and the sand there, we are going to have a short iron, either dunk or a regular approach for the pin, which is going to be instead a very good chance for an eagle. And as I said, we're going to play the drive 10% extra, so 1-0. And the thing that we're gonna do for the second shot is that we are not going to go with anything extra. It's going to be played as 0. And when we do have this type of wind, I think it's better to play with a wood club that gives you backspin. And Sniper 10 gives us 6.5 bar backspin. I would say choose the Guardian. So even with a lower level Guardian, you will be able to have a decent backspin. But then we come with another problem, is that we do need curl when we do have this type of wind. But the beauty with the display to use the backspin here, even though you have a little amount of curl, is that we take away the risk of bouncing into the rough or into the sand that you do have below our target there. And that is very valuable. We get some curl there with the backspin. The ball is gonna come in on the fairway and gonna get it kind of close, but not something I do expect to drop if we do have to lay up. Hole 6. Max topspin, which is 6 bars, and here we do have an advantage for those players playing with XMI level 8, Apocalypse 5 plus, and also Thor's Hammer 5 plus, as we do have the topspin. If you do have an XMI level 7, you can play the same type of shot. The only problem is that you will be clipping the rough to 100%. The drive in itself, maximum distance, max topspin, as much side spin to the left possible, and with a 20% over adjustment. And it's going to bounce on the fairway, second bounce before the rough, and then we want to clear the rough there, but we didn't, and now we roll out. It's not that we are dead now. It's still going to be a possibility for us to get to the green too without a problem. But at the same time, we are not going to be able to approach a pin in the way that we do want. So, what do we do if we do not feel that we have the top spin to reach over, or that we do not feel that we will be, like, if we do have a headwind? Then we can first, when we do have a crosswind, we can choose a power 4, power 5 ball. That could be one way to take away the need of more top spin, and then go with full overpower, try to clear the rough directly. Also, if you then do have headwind, then we can play as our opponent is trying to do, but obviously try to get more distance. We do want to gain as much distance possible, which in the end would leave ourselves up for a shot on the back of the green to let the ball fall back down, or for the rough bump in between the two green trees that we do have closest there to the rough. Tough one nonetheless, but that's the route to take if we do have a headwind, because if you're going to try to bounce over the rough or into the sand, you're gonna just shoot yourself in the foot, because in the end that's not going to be something that's going to make you yourself get over there. And if you just get stuck in the rough, you will not be able to reach for the green in two. So, second shot here, I'm bouncing over the rough, trying to take this line and using a little bit of overpower as we went into overpower position. And here we can see the valuable part with having more distance with a drive. So if we do get a tailwind, this will be a good albatross attempt, like a good albatross hole. If we're not getting tailwind, getting crosswind or headwind, it's going to be a fight for the eagle. Hole number 7, 1.5 bar top spin, max side spin to the right. I'm playing with a power 3 ball, and that's not anything wrong. I want to play with a power 3 ball, as we do want to have the distance and make sure that even if we have a slight headwind, that we won't be able to go in between clubs. So we adjust for maximum distance plus a 10% over adjustment, and we want to bounce over the bunker. If we do have a straight headwind, I would suggest that you do play over to the right side with backspin and then get it up there towards the pin, and then we will be playing with a wood club. Hole number 8, this is a par 4, but as you can see, this is a very short par 4, and it should be an eagle if you're playing this hole. So make sure that you are focused and make sure that you're playing with a quarterback or the rock. I'm playing with an extra mile here, as that was the club that I was having when playing this hole. But the quarterback and the rock gives you a very good accuracy, it gives you a very good ball guideline. 3 bars topspin in tailwind, 4 bars topspin in crosswind, and as much as possible topspin in headwind. Make sure that you think about those numbers, and just have in mind that this is a hole where the compressed and the extended ball guideline is going to have a massive effect. The thing that we do want to do is to get the ball to somewhere around the green area, which will make us having a very easy wedge for the eagle, and that's the only thing we are looking for here. If you do have a club like an Apocalypse level 6 with a lot of backspin and curl, then you can play over to the top left of the fairway there directly. The only thing that I would say is required is that you have some sort of tailwind. Max backspin, max side spin to the right, and around 1 ball of curl outside the adjustment range to the right, and then you're gonna be on the green. Don't forget to over adjust 10% for your first shot, no matter what route you are playing. We go to hole number 9, and here you're going to see 2 approaches. And that is because this is a hole that is tricky to actually know when to decide to play left or to play right. If you do have any form of headwind, as we're having now, then we're gonna play on the right. And I'm using the rough bump to make my ball bounce in the rough to then roll out on the fairway. And I use that route because I want to have control on my first bounce. The fairway is very thin, and it will in that case be very inconsistent with its bounce, and it's gonna be hard for us to stop. From the rough we get a ball guideline to show very nicely on how the ball is going to act. When we do play down to the right, we do need to over adjust 10%. It's going to be different when we play up to the left, so listen carefully when we go over that later on. Landing there is going to give ourselves the possibility of getting towards the green with wood club, by bouncing on the fairway, not the first fairway there you can see on the right, but the second fairway. It's still going to be a very tough one, and I would say that if you decide to play on the right side, it's not going to be a way for you to play for the Albatross. It's going to be too tough, and you're going to have to use, what can I say, you're going to have to play with a Cataclysm or a big dog to give yourself not even a decent chance, but a chance. Because now you can see with a sniper, level 9, and we are just barely getting over to the fairway here. And the thing that we do need to think about here though is that we can come in hot. It's better to come in hot than short, because the green has an uphill slope at the back that will push the ball back down towards the pin. The elevation for the second shot is going to be a 10% over adjustment. Very important, and that's going to be the same for the right side as it is for the left side. We bounce with a very bad bounce, getting into the rough and then to roll out. And still from here, safe shot for the eagle, safe wedge. So in the end, when we do now prepare for going over to play on the left side, there's one thing to have in mind there, is that you do need topspin. A club with 4.5 bar topspin, which an extra mile level 7 below is having, is a little bit too little in my opinion. So either you play with a Thor's hammer, you play with an Apocalypse, or you play with an extra mile level 8, or you can even play with the big topper, or as I call it, Mr. Topper. Mr. Topper. It's a nice club, gives you a lot of topspin, but if you're going to play with a big topper and you're not having a straight tailwind, then I would suggest that you play with a power 4 or a power 5 ball to gain enough distance. But at the start here, we're gonna play with an XMI level 8, and you're gonna see that with an XMI level 8, with 6 bars of topspin, we are able to gain enough distance to for our first shot. Our opponent goes very short, but even if he would be going a little bit further, not clipping the rough, with a basic ball, he would not be able to reach for the green in 2. So you do need to play with a power 3 ball here, even though you might want to save them, but play with a power 3 ball to give yourself the distance so you have a shot for the pin in 2. Playing up there to the left, we're going to play with nothing extra, we play 10% on the right side when we play nothing on the left. Max overpower, max top spin, as much side spin to the right possible, and great to the right is risky. We're gonna be close to the rough, and then roll. The further we roll, the easier time we're going to have to approach the pin from distance. So, and if you do want to have a yardage that kind of helps you to, know if you have enough distance. If you get over 400 yards, then you're gonna be fine. But the problem if you get shorter than that, then you're gonna have to fight the trees. You're going to have to fight the hard part with going for the rough bump or the thin fairway in between the rough and the sand. So our opponent's going to try to go over the trees. It's definitely not suggested by any means. And the reason I don't see that as suggested is because, you have a big risk of hitting the trees in some form. And then you will not be able to reach over at all. So, now our shot, 10% extra for the rough bump. And we're going to play that one by using the sniper. We do want to use the sniper as it helps us with the ball guideline. So using the rough, and then we're going to add the top spin to visualize on how the ball is going to go. I would say it's nothing against here using side spin to the left, but the thing that we do want to stay away from is that we do not want to adjust that much down into the sand, because that's going to be a hard way for us to adjust our shot. So around somewhere between 3-4 bars topspin is going to be the general amount of topspin to use there. And now when we get into the rough, we do need to remember to push up our target a little bit in the end, so we're not having the problem with going short. So this was the playthrough for Pro and Expert Division in the Great Outdoors Tournament. If you do want more content for the Great Outdoors Tournament, but also content overall for Golf Clash, you go into golfclashtommy.com. If you do want to get the text guide for the Great Outdoors Tournament, but also text guide for other stuff, or maybe you're interested in a training session, sign up on patreon.com/golfclashtommy, linked in the video description down below. The video here is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and I, in the end, want to thank you for watching and wish you the best of luck in the Great Outdoors Tournament.